everyone. Welcome to a new episode of KCrush America Magazine. And this is one of my special interviews for the Minikino Film Week of the 2024 Bali International Film Festival. I am your host, film critic and journalist, Carolyn Hinds. And today I'm very happy to be joined by filmmaker Dina Naser to talk about her film, Sukoun, which also means amplified. And it's about this young girl, Hinds, who is hearing impaired. And she's a karate enthusiast. She's a burgeoning karate champion. And just before she begins preparing for a championship game, she is sexually harassed by her karate teacher. And I'll tell you, it made me think of instances in my childhood where as a young girl, I was catcalled, and harassed by men, not physically, but but like verbally harassed by grown men. So this film really did really got into something that I'm unfortunately familiar with, and that too many young girls are unfamiliar with. And I want to thank you, Dina, for making a film like this, because not only are you showing something that young girls go through, but you're also showing representation of a disabled young girl and like the challenges that poses for her. So thank you, first of all, for making the film, and thank you for talking to me. So congratulations. Thank you. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having the time to talk to me today. It's my pleasure to be with you. I just want to correct one thing that you said about Sukoun means amplified. Actually, Sukoun in Arabic means completely the opposite of amplified.
Oh,
Amplified,
really?
yeah, is basically amplifying. And Sukoun is completely the contrast, is the calmness, the state of being, the state of staying in that kind of quiet and calm mind state, which is kind of a representation of how the deaf community in specifically live in that calmness in their inner world that is very pure and very calm and very away from the noise of reality. So Sukoun is that state, and amplified is completely the contrast, which again represent what happened to the girl in the story is very amplified, but Sukoun is her inner world.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually going to ask you about that, because the reason I thought Sukoun meant amplified is like the title of the film, it has Sukoun, and then in the brackets parentheses it has amplified. So I was thinking that was just I thought that was just the English interpretation of the word, but I know it makes me curious. Like we're going to definitely talk about all of this because it really does tie into the film. So, and it talks a lot about I guess for people who are deaf and hard of hearing and hearing impaired, and for many disabled people, there's the way that we interact with the world, and then there's the way that we feel as people, where we have our interior lives, and using Hind as the example, and you mentioned, and now it makes me very curious about why you chose karate as the sport that she practices and her hobby, because karate is a very physical sport. She has to verbalize that, like they use a lot of verbal expressions, like the hi and the kai when they're doing the greetings and all of this. And it's like an amplification of sign language in a way, because sign language is a physical form of communication. She speaks, of course, she can read lips, but she uses her hands for signing. But then she has that physical exertion, but then with the karate, she even goes further out. Her movements are even bigger. So like the karate is like an amplified version of the sign language. So now I'm very curious. I'm gonna start there. Talk about choosing karate as like this amplified version of who Hind is physically.
Actually, I chose karate because, as you said, it is something physical and it does not really 100% depend on your hearing. If you're hearing impaired, you still can practice this kind of sport. It does not stop you from practicing this sport. This is one thing. The second thing, it's a very visual sport where it's all about the physical body, the physical movement, and creating that space around your body. And third, because it's very ironic that she learns how to defend herself. But when actually she found herself in a situation where she's supposed to defend herself, the shock was bigger than any skill that she learned, and she was not able to defend herself. So it's kind of ironic situation that I wanted to create. Like, even if you are an athlete or you learn really the best techniques to really be able to defend yourself physically, the psychological shock can really make you paralyzed and cannot make you take any step to defend yourself. So I try to really emphasize on how this kind of psychological effect and mental effect, this situation can affect anyone is subjected to this kind of sexual or harassment in this moment. You lose all what you learned and all what you know, and you get stuck in that kind of pain or trauma.
No, and it's very true because I remember, and this is from very young, as I mentioned in the beginning, like I've had experiences that, but I remember like watching, I love like martial arts films, watching films with like Bruce Lee, Chanya Fat, like those Hong Kong action movies, like Chinese karate action films. And I remember my sister, when we were in secondary school, she joined a karate club. It didn't last very long because she was all over. I was like, hey, yeah, I'm breaking stuff. And my mom's like, that's it. You know what? You're breaking stuff. Like, find another hobby. So she started to learn to photography. But I remember like watching documentaries, and one of the things they always say is that you learn martial arts not to harm, but to defend, to defend yourself, and for Hind, like she's as a not only as a girl in society, but as someone who's deaf and who has a physical disability that places her as a disadvantage to other people, like she's believing that she has this physical ability to defend herself. But the thing is like, as you said, like fear is paralyzing. And one of the reasons that it's paralyzing is that it happens at the least expected time, from the last person you expect to be the attacker. She's not prepared to attack herself against a person who's teaching her to defend herself. And that's where a lot of the psychological shock comes from, because the way how you structure the scene is I thought it was kind of genius because of the conversation that they have. Like she's running around first looking for her hearing aid, but it starts out with him complimenting her. He's like telling her, you are going to be amazing with the competition. She's been selected for the championship. He's like complimenting her, telling her all of these things, like what she can do. And then he tells her about she has to learn to defend herself with how she moves her body. And I remember, because I've rewatched the film a couple of times, but I remember the first time he said that, it was like, don't do this. I could see it coming. I was like, please don't. I'm like, don't do this. Don't do this to her. And it was just like, right. And I just thought, like, for her, the biggest shock is the betrayal, like having the person someone that she trusts implicitly, this man that she's looking at as a father figure because her dad is no longer there. Talk to me first, because I'm going to talk about the things that he tells her, but talk to me first about having him be the person who betrays her trust in such a fundamental way. Like he breaks something in her that can't ever be repaired, because as for girls, when we experience something like this, there's something in us that breaks and it never really gets put back together completely. So talk to me about that choice and making him be the person who breaks that trust.
Because actually, during the research, while we are in pre-production for the film, we did several focus group with mental experts, psychological experts, and also victims, men and women, for us to understand like their journey and how this kind of situation happens. And through this research, we discovered like all these, I cannot say all, but most of these incidents happen from people that you trust, that you do not accept that it will happen from them. And they are close in your circle, either family members or someone that you trust, or someone that really knows your life and knows your character and knows that you are in a safe space around them. And unfortunately, these kind of acts come from these people, which is also triple the shock for her and the feeling of betrayal, because you would never ever expect that someone that you trust and created a safe space for you to exist in will be harming you in that ugly way. So we understood from that research, like most of these circles are very close into your life. So therefore we thought, of course, he's someone close to her. He has to be someone who she's trusted. And because of the father figure that she doesn't have a father, the closeness is more and the trust is more. And of course, he's someone who always charge her with strength, who always charge her with power in order to move on in this life. But unfortunately, reality is so ugly, and reality can change things. And of course, when you have these kind of mentalities that I always call are sick mentalities, when they target, especially people with disability, which I also found out that they are more targeted by these mentally ill people, because they know like these people are not able to speak or express themselves because they're always in a vulnerable place, and they know like they can get away with what they did. So targeting disabilities, of course, it's a easy target, let's say, for the harassers in general. So choosing that to happen from her coach is just a representation of sometimes even in your most trusted circles, these kind of ugly situation could happen. So we really need to be careful how to protect our kids. I'm not saying that we cannot trust, of course we can, but of course sometimes even when the most trusted people, they can hurt you and they can harm you. So, and of course I wanted to highlight like how people with disabilities are more vulnerable and sensitive and more targeted by penetrators, like in general, because they know their ability to defend themselves or to speak up or to report is not the same as when you are an able person where you can report and try to open an investigation about this case. So taking into consideration all these elements, this is how we structured the story. And this is how the best way we felt like can build a narrative that can be very smooth and very flowy. And then we make this kind of a very intense twist where we can see her world shifting upside down and the safe space get shattered and becomes unsafe at all.
No, and it does. And like I mentioned, like he compliments her first, and then this is what makes actions like this so insidious, not only because of the person that does it is someone that's trusted, but it's the way they do it, you know. It's again like he's building her trust, he's reminding her of the trust that she has in him, which is he's telling her, you know, how to defend herself physically, you know, like, and like he's like saying, if you make this action during the tournament, you lose, you know, like this is how you win, you know. And then he talks to her about you need to eat better, you know, sleep better, you know, like focus more. And it's a way, and it's right, and it's a way to off balance her, because then again she's not preparing for what's coming, so he's distracting her and he's using complimentary language to do it. And I thought that was, again, this is something where I, again, like as a woman, like I said, like only a woman could really understand how men do things like this to other women, because they know what their intention is, you know, they know what they plan to do, and they know like this is what I'm going to say, because this is going to be the most effective way to make her be as susceptible to me as possible, you know. This is a way to make her doubt herself, because then, you know, she's thinking, but he was just complimenting me, you know, he was just telling me how to win, so like him hugging me can't really be a violation, you know, because he said, but it was just a hug. But like we know that it's always more than just a hug, you know. We know when someone verbally harasses us, where they can say it as a compliment, but we know it's not really a compliment, because it's meant to make us feel bad about ourselves. So talking about writing the dialogue, because again, to a lot of people it may seem innocuous, but like to people who've experienced this, people like, yeah, this is exactly how they speak to us, you know. This is how they off balance us and make us doubt ourselves by complimenting us first and then going in for the attack. And then even if the attack isn't like, and it is physically violent, but it's to make the person that's being attacked doubt that it's a physically violent act.
Exactly. Even although it's just maybe it looks like a normal hug, but a hug that lasted more than it should be, it turns to something else. And we should be aware of that, and we should actually transit this awareness to our kids. Like not everybody touch you like a normal touch can be a normal touch. No, it looks like a normal touch, but the minute or the second that exists more than it should be, it can turn to something ugly. So it's kind of the tactics as well. Like he was tempting her with the black belt. He was trying to empower her that you will the one who will win the black belt. You the one who will exceed. You will the one who will shine. Of course, to make her closer, to make her more comfortable, to make her more trustable. It's as well a tactic that is very sick. It's a tactic that does not exist only in a man sick mind. A psychopath would as well think in this way and try to create a tactics to make sure that the victim is already fallen in the trap. So we learned that because we did a lot of research and we heard so many stories from women and men, both. Like it's not only considered like focused on women. No, actually, I heard so many stories from men that are heartbreaking as well. So all of this accumulation of different stories that comes from reality, from people that around me, that I was surprised to hear that they were subjected to such incidents when they were young. Like people never share these things. But since I started this film and I tried even to talk to my very close circle and I tried to open up this topic, I discovered like, wow, all the women around me went through this in a certain point in their life, and they never shared that, and they carry this pain all their life, and it affected them in their childhood, in their adult, in their relationships, in their marriage, in everything. Like, yeah, it sounds like a 30-second of an incident, but it can change your whole life. So we really need to understand how to acknowledge this pain and how to acknowledge when you are subjected to such an incident, how it will shape your life for the rest of your life, how it shape your personality. Either it will break you or it will empower you. Like Hind, it was very important for me not to show Hind in a very, very weak position. Although when what she went through was heartbreaking and it really turned her life upside down. But I tried so hard in the end to find a moment with herself, with her inner world, where she found some kind of a strength to empower herself again and say to the world, no, you will not break me. You will not destroy me. I will continue and I will fight and I will win this fight. That was very important for me to show because always I see in films like this kind of ending where we show the victim that she's very unable to do anything. No, even if she's a young girl, she understands how to empower herself. And we should push for that power and increase it as much as possible. Because in the end, we need to send that message, no matter what, you can have the power that you need to empower yourself and move on. And maybe one day in her life, she will come back and fight back for her right, you know?
Yeah, I love the ending because when I first watched the film, I couldn't figure out what she was doing with the marker. I was like, what is she writing? I thought she was just writing something on on a big sheet of paper or something. And then I realized, oh wait, she's making the belt herself. She's making the black belt herself. And I thought it was such a brilliant way to, as you said, is like taking back her power and claiming it for herself. But I found it was also a way of saying she's rejecting him and the potential power he has over her life because, as like the instructor, he's the person who determines like how they level up, if they go from a yellow belt to a green belt, for her case, from a brown belt to a black belt, he's a person who would determine that. And she's like, no, I'm not going to give you that power. I'm not going to let you determine my next step in life. I'm not going to let you determine my next level in life. And I thought it was a brilliant way of visually showing where she was at mentally, where she's like, even at such a, she's like, no, I recognize that you are a predator and I recognize that you are abuser of power. And I'm going to take back this power for myself, especially the love of the sport of karate. She's like, I'm not going to let you corrupt this thing that I love so much. And I love that you gave her that, and especially for that. And when she was marking it, like the way like the actress Malak was, she would touch her face and it looked like she was putting on, like when people are, like when soldiers are kind of preparing for war, they put the paint on their face, like war paint. And it kind of made me think of that, like she was putting on war paint at the same time she was coloring the belt. So talk to me about that scene, because I love that scene.
It was very challenging scene, to be honest. But we always knew, like, we wanted to end the film in an empowering statement.
Mm,
I knew from the beginning, like, I do not want to end the story in a sad note, and I do not want to end the story um, on a victim kind of state. I want to end the film in an empowering message, because this coach represent authority, represent, it's a symbolic way of saying how authority comes to your life and makes you, breaks you, or make you, or depends how you function in your life. But it's very important, although with all this darkness, that you find some kind of light and you empower yourself to keep going. That's very important for me, to make sure, like, yes, we are able to keep going, we are able to empower ourselves, and we are able to deal with our pain in our own ways. Like Hind has her own innocent, childish way where she painted the black belt for herself. This is a decision that she arrived to by herself, like, even without sharing this pain with her mother. It was a very fresh moment that she was trying to digest, and she was unable to think of, like, sharing it or not sharing. It was too fresh for her to deal with. And it was very important for me to try to create some kind of this short journey where she arrives to that point and find a way to reclaim her power and give herself the black belt as a message to the world. He will not stop me from doing what I love to do. Karate is my world, and I do not want to lose my world. So I
mm,
will give it to myself, and I will continue, and I will fight back. And it's just a symbolic way of her trying to send a message to the world and to herself in the first place. So it was kind of challenging to try to find a way to structure some kind of a visual image that can give that message and give that feeling. No matter how dark it is, there's some light that you can find in yourself, and do not let anyone break it. Do not let anyone um, stop you from doing what you love to do. It's a
mm,
fast battle, and it's maybe a first lesson in your life as a child that made you maybe grow many years from these few seconds. You grow in one day, it changed you and it made you an adult. So this is one of the lessons that maybe she will face in her life. And it started this way. So life, it is a battlefield, and we need to know how to navigate it, and we need to know how to defend ourselves, especially as women in societies that are male-dominated societies. So we have to really work triple or harder than men, first to prove our capacity and our ability to do things and exist in different sectors, sports, social, science, and political, and everything. But also as a child, she faced that kind of pressure, and she learned from that pain. And this is how we get stronger.
no, it is. And you mentioned the most. I wanted to talk a bit about the relationship between Hind and her mom Nada. And I love the relationship because it starts out pretty filled with tension. And that's because she's around what? She's around 11, 12 years old. So she's a preteen. So she's going through all of these hormonal changes. She's at that point in that stage of life where she's not rebelling per se, but she's trying to find more autonomy as a young person, like she loves her mom, but she's also like, I want a bit more room away from you. And that's something we all go through, we all go through this point with our parents where we're just like, can you just give me just a bit more latitude, a bit more space? I'm growing up. Let me show you that I'm growing up. So the film starts out that way. And I want you to talk about that because, and first of all, casting Malak and Nassar, who plays Hind, and then the mom, Nada, who's played by Suhad Khatib. Talk about casting them, because for me, I always pay attention to the chemistry of actors, like especially for a parent and a child, you need actors who work really well together, because when they have the scenes when they're really being communicative and they're being affectionate for each other, we have to believe that they love each other. But then when they're also having these moments of tension, when they're not really getting along, we have to also believe that they're still mother and daughter who do love each other, but they're just at this point of transition where, you know, like they're getting on each other's nerves. So talk to me about casting them first and like working out the chemistry and the dynamic between them to play these two characters.
Actually, Malak and Suhad, they are first-time actors. Like this
Mm.
time they act. And first, I will start with Malak because how I casted Malak, because in the beginning, I thought like I would love to find a girl who is an athlete in karate, like she's a black belt or something, and then maybe I will train her to do the role or make her into the world of the disability. And then I discovered like there's a division between disabled people and able people. Like you will never enter to a sport center where you can find disabled people training with other people. So there's a huge division that I discovered, and I was really sad like to see even in that people cannot be existing in the same space. So, and especially in karate, like people with a hearing impaired, they can train with normal people, if you want to call them normal. And I hate
Yeah.
to say that, but unfortunately, this is the reality of it. So there's a big division that you will never find a hearing impaired person trained with hearing people. And I was shocked, and it was sad for me because especially martial art, it does not depend 100% on your hearing. You can learn the sport and you can exist in these centers and train with other people. So once I discovered this fact, this very sad fact, I changed my strategy. So I thought, okay, maybe I will find a hearing impaired little girl who I would train her to do karate. So I started to do this, I changed my strategy and I started to reach out to different centers in Jordan for disabilities, and I found Malak. And I said like, okay, let's meet up. I would love to meet Malak. I actually reached out to a very close person to her who is the sign language interpreter. And he's the one who connected me with Malak. I said, okay,
Mm.
let's have a coffee and let's meet up. So I went to this cafe and I see Malak coming wearing her headphones, like her music headphones, listening
Mm.
to music all the time. Very cool girl that I was impressed from the first second I saw her. And we sat and we talked, and Saif, of course, he's an amazing person who helped us a lot to bridge the two worlds together. So he was helping me to translate and getting to know Malak, and Malak for her to get to know me. And I asked like the first question, of course, like, how do you listen to music? Like that was, I need to understand like how do you listen to music, how do you dance, how you interact with sound. And she was very exciting in how she was very open, very honest, and she shared a lot with me. And from that moment, I felt this strong connection to this girl, and I knew like there's something is calling me towards her. And I stopped actually my research from that day. Like I knew like there's something in this girl that I want to invest more. Maybe subconsciously, this feeling was very strong in my heart and my body. So I stopped like really searching for other characters, and I said, okay, let's stop here and let's invest some time with this girl. And through time, we got close to each other. She introduced me to the beautiful deaf community in Jordan. And I had a very beautiful, strong relationship with them now. And since that day, okay, I said, okay, let's start training. So we created in pre-production two phases that we designed. First, we searched a lot to find a center who accept a hearing impaired person. And of course, we found a woman who has a karate center who accepted to take Malak and train her for 4 months intensively. And this woman, beautiful soul, even like she took her, she didn't ask for any cost, like she was very open. And she took care of her for 4 months. And she was taking very intensive training in order for us that we can see her achievement and her, like how she is evolving in the sport. And she, even the coach at that time, he told us like, this girl is brilliant. Like she's learning very fast. She's even like exceeding other participants in the class. Like she shine. you know? So we did that kind of training for intensely for 4 months, and then we designed a month and a half or something, a boot camp for with the actors like Suhad, Malak, and Nadim, which is the coach. And we designed this boot camp out of different exercises that we learned from theater, because of course I didn't rehearse the script with them at all. I didn't know. I just wanted them to connect physically, emotionally, mentally together. So we always every day meet up for long hours playing games that can be that can break some social barriers, that can break some psychological barriers and physical barriers as well. Like either you will find them getting to know each other through a game, or you see them their body movement get introduced to each other through a game as well. Like I was trying for them to really create an environment where they really connect without really sitting and talking to each other about each other and introducing each other. No, I wanted them to really connect. So this is how this relationship between the mother and the daughter happened, all because of that boot camp that we designed with the cast. And as well, this trust of Malak and the coach happened during that period. So they get to know each other, they really bonded. The chemistry between the three of them was evolving every day, every day, every day, because the environment that we created was very safe, was very fun, was very dynamic, and every day there's a different exercise that make them know each other really deeper, like on a deep level. So all of that was reflected on the screen, because we invested so much effort and time and creativity in trying to create that creative space so they can really create an honest relationship and trustable relationship. And I was always against rehearsing the script. I was always against learning the lines. I wanted to create a space for them to create that magic, just for them to live the story, to understand the story. And during the shoot, I was so open to let them really find their way in expressing the emotion or the situation the way they see it, not the way I want to force it on them. So I created this kind of dynamic where we are always brainstorming, we are always sharing thoughts and emotions and how to do this better. What do you think? How you feel? Is this comfortable? It's not. We're always changing and adapting to the situation. So we create a space for this magic to happen. And that was very important for me, because I think coming from a documentary background, I learned how to deal with reality and how to capture these moments. And I know these things cannot be staged and cannot be forced. Either it happens because the energy and the chemistry is working, or it does not work. You cannot force that. And if you do, it will show on the screen. That's obviously, yani, it was very clear for me. So this kind of experience helped me as well to really deal with. First, Nadim is an experienced actor. It was also as well very inspiring for him to work in this way. Malak and Suhad, they never acted, and they were very excited about the whole experience and how they think they want to present the character the best way they can. Suhad, she's a friend of mine. And when I told her, like, this is the relationship, and I really don't want you to act, you are a mother, and I want this warmth, and I want this feelings that I always feel with you. I just want you to be yourself. I do not want you to change anything. I want this mother warmth, mother feeling that, this something that is always that I feel with her. I just wanted to capture that on the camera. And of course, I prepared, like, what's the situation and the environment, and how would you act if you feel there's something wrong with your daughter? How would you react? Does your mind arrive to the point that this might happen? Or what would you do? How would you think? How would you react? I want something that is very organic and natural. And from that place, I wanted to operate. I didn't want to fake things or stage it or create an emotion that she doesn't feel. I want her to be herself, and I wanted her to operate from that warm place with her daughter.
Hmm. No, and all of the work that you guys put into like just preparation alone really does come through on the screen. And this is one of the things I love about short films in particular, and talking to filmmakers who make short films, especially those who are like you who have documentary backgrounds, because I find filmmakers who, first of all, who are documentarians are always just fascinated with human behavior and spend a lot of time observing people and like working, and then wants to transition making like feature was it dramatic films like this. Like you spend so much time making sure that the actor is really familiar with each other and they're familiar with the characters and the story you want them to tell, and it always comes through on screen. And something that I've noticed about short films in particular, and I think this is like just across the board because I've interviewed so many filmmakers from all over the world who make short films, and something that always strikes me is that filmmakers who make short films spend so much time in prep with the actors, you know? And I think sometimes it doesn't happen as much as you would think with big budget films or with big or feature length films than you think that you would think, you know, like, well, you know, they're working 3-4 months on a film, like they spend more time like really getting to know their characters. But I find that's not really always the case, you know, whereas for short films, filmmakers generally spend a lot of time, sometimes more time in prep than the actual production, you know, to make sure that these, because like you have such a short span of time to tell a full story, you want to make sure that the actors know who their characters are, so that once you begin filming, you don't have to spend so much time rehearsing, you know, you don't have to spend so much time saying like, okay, you don't have the, first of all, you don't have the money to spend on 30 takes in a day, you know, you're like, we don't got time for this. So like, you want to get this done in as many takes, and the way to get that done is to make sure the actors know their characters, you know. And I think that that's such a special, I think that's one of the reasons why I love short films so much, is because you have like such a short span of time to tell a full story, and we as the audience have to be fully invested in this story immediately, you know. And that happens with this film, like I'm fully invested in the lives of these characters, you know. And like even with the Saeed, the teacher played Benedine, like once he comes on, like I have to immediately buy that he's trustworthy, you know. I have to immediately buy that Hind trusts him, but her mother as well trusts her daughter to leave her alone at this gym with this man, you know. And that comes through because of the prep, the amount of time that you guys spent so much time working with them. And I was gonna ask you about this, but and you mentioned it, is like the thing with because Suhad is new to the role, to acting, but then most of all Malik is new to acting. They have to, this scene with Saeed changes so quickly, you know. It changes from one of being comfort and him like assuring her to one of like danger very quickly. And that again has to be believable for us, for the audience, you know. We have to believe that this switch is happening. And like as I said, like I saw it coming because like I myself am intimately familiar with this situation like that. And that happens because you built the trust with them before filming, you know. So talk to me about you cast them for this film. What were their thoughts on the story itself, you know, on the action of what would happen, you know. Like this is a film about sexual assault of a minor, you know. This is a film about sexual assault of a disabled child, and that is what the film is about. That's what it is about as a core, and about highlighting this for audiences and for society to pay attention to say this happens, you know. So what were their thoughts once you really started to discuss this is going to be the center of this film? Like what was the process like for them just to work through that, especially because Hind herself, not Hind, sorry, Malik herself, this is her very first acting role, you know, like, and having her this be having a scene like this be involved in her first film. Like talk to me about the process of just that in particular, because I think that's very important to talk about.
Of course, like the minute I shared the story and what's the structure of the story, everybody was supported and supporting it, and everybody was encouraging me to tackle such a topic that is very taboo in our society, and nobody talks about it because we live in a culture that based on shame and blame. And if
Mhm.
something happened to a girl, she is the question is falling to her, not about the you know what's happened, what did you do? So it's kind of that situation. It's a very sensitive and a taboo subject that nobody dares really to tackle it. So,
Yes.
for Melakin specifically, she understood, and she is a very brilliant, smart girl. Like, she was aware of the situation, and she was hearing stories from other people from the deaf community that were subjected to such situations. And when we start to share the story with her and the deaf community, everybody started to tell me a story that happened to me, that happened to me. I was in that position. I had to deal with that. So she was aware of how important and how the responsibility in telling such an important story. So of course she was a bit scared. She was a bit worried how to do it in the best way, but she was the strongest in all of us. Like, she was dealing with it in a very responsible way, let's say. And even like when we did the harassment scene, as I mentioned, we never rehearsed that scene. It was kind of like we created all the vibes and environment, but the scene was purely like from that moment. And I remember we did few takes, and she comes to me and tells me, like, Dina, no, I don't feel like I did the best because the character has to go through different emotions in a very short time. So I have to switch from being very comfortable to being very scared and angry until I arrived to the moment where I realized what's the situation, and then I pushed him. So she was really aware of even the journey, the emotional journey that she needed to create. And she was amazing. Like, I was scared to death at that moment. I was really worried about that. And also the coach, like the coach was not easy for him to do this role. He has to really train himself to go to that very dark place in order for him to get this monster out of him.
Mhm.
So it was very challenging for him to really go back to that place and that moment where he can really switch from a very good person to a monster. It was very challenging for him. And of course, Suhad, as a mother, like, she know how important is that, because these kind of incidents could happen anywhere. It could happen in your school, in your when you go to your grocery shopping, when you go to your doctor. It's something that we always hear, but we never created a representation in a movie or in cinema. So I received so much support, and I received so much encouragement not to be afraid to tackle such a very sensitive and a very taboo topic in our society. And instead, we need to highlight it, and we need to open the space for the safe dialogue to bring this kind of awareness to our schools, to our kids, to our relatives, to everyone, and not to feel afraid to share when you get subjected to such an incident, not to keep it in yourself and carry it for the rest of your life. No, you have to share it, and you have to learn how to heal yourself in order for you to empower yourself. This is something that we miss, we lack. We don't know how to, with this knowledge of dealing with our pain or dealing with our emotions and traumas, and how to heal, how to get out from that dark place, is something that is very important, that we create a space for this kind of dialogue and get experts that can give some kind of guidance to this generation who is very subjected to everything now. Yeah, I forgot what I wanted to say.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No, what I was gonna say is that kind, and that goes into like the title of the film where you talk about Sukoun is like the internal and the calm and the undisturbed or amplified is the opposite of that, you know? And it kind of makes me think of your film is basically amplifying the need to talk about these kind of situations, you know, like because for especially in, as you said, it's in male and patriarchal and male dominated societies, we as women and like people who are both, and this is involves like male victims of sexual assault and sexual violence, we're taught to feel shame. You know, we're taught to hide it, you know, and the only way we get away from that is speaking about it, you know, as you said, is amplifying and say, this has happened to me. This person, the person who did this is the one who should be ashamed, you know. And the film is like basically, as you said, it's about both the silence and the noise, you know, the interior and the external. And it's like you're saying that we need to amplify the need to talk about these situations, you know, we need to amplify the voices of the victims, you know, and I think the film is very much about that, because like for him, like she's doing that unconsciously, you know, when she colors the belt and all of that. This is a physical sign, a visual sign. Like she may not even be thinking of it, but her mom could look at it and say, what happened to you? Why are you doing this to something that you treasured? You know, why are you like, you know, because she's like taking the belt and coloring it herself. So that's destroying it in essence. And so like she may not be ready to talk about verbally with her mom, but her mom can look and see there is something wrong and I need to deal with this situation. You know, and again, this is again something that is very necessary. Like even in 2024, like women, and there are women who like experience these things again as children and never talk about them until they're adults, or maybe even never ever talk about them because they're meant to feel that shame. Whereas the person who did the wrong gets to go on about their life unscathed, you know,
Exactly.
unscarred, you know, and feeling no shame. And I'm just like, and like as we were talking, it made me think of the lady Helene in France, you know, who's going through this trial, and she's like, why should the shame of what happened to me, of you know the rapes that she experienced, why should the shame be mine? You know, the shame should be on them, on these men who violated me, on these men who hurt me. And I think like she's being such a brave person because like she's confronting and she's doing it in the world. And your film is showing like even for young girls, it's showing for young girls especially, like you can like this is a way you can be brave too, you know, even if you're not ready to speak about it. Like this is a way that you can take back your power, in essence, you know, claim it for yourself. And it's not that it doesn't harm you, and it's not that it won't sit with you for a while, and like, it's not that it won't take years for you to process, but there is a way to like get back some value in that, you know, some power. And I think the film is very much about the amplification of that. Um, and
Absolutely. How to be, how,
so like I have to thank you for that first of all, because like it really does make me think like we don't have films like this about childhood sexual harassment, and then about the disability aspect of disabled children, you know. So like first I have to keep thanking you for that, because I'm just like I can't think of another film that's very much like it.
thank you so much. It was really important to also remind people that you can be brave in
Mm,
confronting pain and dealing with your trauma. You are a brave person. Don't let anyone make you weak or break you. You will be subjected to these kind of situation or different situations. You have to learn how to be brave, and you have to learn how to really confront this and acknowledge the pain. Don't really suppress it and act like you are normal in life, and suddenly this pain will come and be in your face, and you don't know how to deal with it, because it will be something will happen, and it will trigger it, and it will come out. So don't deny your pain, and don't deny whatever trauma that you went through. Try to be brave to how to deal with it. And it was very important for me to give a voice for the voiceless. This is
mm,
amplifying the voice of the disability. To be honest, in the beginning, in making the film, I was not thinking about the disability itself. The disability itself, it was a symbolic way for me to try to translate how my mind was thinking. I was
mm,
thinking about the silence. I was thinking how our silence can be deafening when we tackle such pain. So it was a way for me to choose a character that was unable to speak and unable to hear, which is a way to talk about silence, because this is where the starting point for me, the silence, how we silence ourselves, how we silence our emotion, and how we silence our pain, thinking that we've managed to deal with it, and suddenly we discovered, oh no, there's so much to deal with, and I need to heal myself.
mm,
So my mind tried to create a symbolic way, so it chose a character that is deaf. But from the beginning, it wasn't a target for me that I wanted to tackle the disability itself. I wanted to talk about something very bigger, like the silencing that the collective silence that we live towards injustices, towards pain, towards trauma, towards anything that wrong in our life, and we keep on living like if it does not exist. No, it does not. It exists. I give you example now, what is happening in my home country. I'm a Palestinian filmmaker, and the global silence towards the atrocities that is happening in my country is very deafening. So it's kind of a symbolic way to say that in a very small scale through this story. But what I wanted to say is much, much bigger, when how we silence, how we are becoming silent towards wrong and how we deal with it. And we take a blind eye and ear and pretend that it does not exist. Injustice is there, and we need to be brave to speak about it, and we need to brave how to confront it. So it's as well, it's a symbolic way of me understanding this inner world that I also carry inside of me, and the world I live in, especially in this moment where it's a very sensitive and very important that everybody has to speak up and everybody has to say something about the injustices that we live in day by day in our societies on different levels.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that because I actually do want to talk about that, about the Palestinian connection. But so I do want to share with you, like I mentioned, like I've experienced similar to what uh Hind went through, but also me. I have what you would call an invisible disability. I have a dynamic invisibility, which is I have multiple sclerosis and I have fibromyalgia. And I mention this because like those do present physical barriers for me. You know, like sometimes my body doesn't do what I want it to do the time that I want it to do. You know, it doesn't react to situations. Like I might have the fight or flight situation, and like you know, like the whole freeze up, like I want to move as quickly as possible for the situation. My body was like, no, your legs are gonna start moving very slowly. So like when, like as you said, like you said, like her deafness is almost incidental to the story, because she doesn't have to be necessarily a disabled character, but it was important to have that representation not only of disabilities but of showing like how, like you know, like there is that saying, silence is deafening. If you've been in a place that is completely absent of sound, it does do physically have this sense of sensation of definite of like deafness, you know, where you're like you can't hear anything, your body's and our bodies are receiving signals, right? But as a person with an invisible disability, I was thinking, even if Hind wasn't deaf, she could have been someone who's like me, who has multiple sclerosis, who has fibromyalgia, another invisible disability, and like that would still pose an extra challenge to her. So like for me, like I saw it as just like, yeah, like for me, I could be in a situation like her and I will have the exact same reaction, because my disability in a way affects the way that I look at the world, and it shapes the way the world looks at me. You know, like the world might look at me and not realize, oh, like she has a disability, but I know that I'm disabled, and it informs the way I interact with the world. So I just wanted to add that. And I want now to talk about the Palestinian connection, because the film is a co-production. It's a Jordanian and a Palestinian production. Talk to me about just about the logistics of making a film, of making a short film and making a co-production between Jordan and Palestine. And what was that like, that process like for you? Because I'm very interested in about just like how filmmakers are able to make their films, because even short films are not cheap. And you know, and like with the amount of time that you especially spent with researching and prepping and speaking to all of the people in like in medical professional medical fields, and you know, and like talking about disability, and then the 4 months that Malik spent training, like you spent so much time in prep. So talk to me about all of that, the challenges of making a film like this and being a co-production.
Well, the challenges are endless, you know. They never stop, you know. But to be honest, like the film is a co-production between Jordan, Palestine, and Egypt.
Mm.
And I was very intentional about this because I really wanted to make this film with money that comes from my region. And I
Mhm.
wanted to have the full freedom in expressing what I wanted to express. It is very always, it's very sensitive and critical for me not to fall in that trap of creating something for a certain agenda or have
Mhm.
some kind of conditions. I want to be free, ultimately free in doing what I want. So I was very intentional, like trying to make this film in money that comes from my region, where I have my ultimate freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. The co-production happened between like receiving funds from the Royal Film Commission in Jordan and receiving money from the Film Lab in Palestine. And
Mhm.
also, I was very lucky to collaborate with the Red Star in Egypt, a production house in Egypt that believed in the story and helped us in investing some funding in making sure that the story comes to life. And honestly, I was very lucky as well, like between creating this three countries, I felt the ultimate comfortable and I was free and I didn't feel any kind of restrictions or any regulations that I need to follow, which is always very crucial for me to
Mm.
be in safe hands where I can have my ultimate freedom in doing what I want to do. But the rest of the money, we had to really like find investors, invest money from our pockets, trying to get sponsorships, trying to find anything that can be sponsored in any way. Because although it's a short film, but making films in Jordan is very expensive because it's an expensive kind of sector. So we tried as much as we can to try to get sponsorship from different places to cover different elements in the production. And we invested as well from our pocket to make it happen. Because the most element also that cost us and really we wanted to invest in is sound.
Mhm.
Sound was a very crucial element in the film, and
Right.
sound and frequency is something that we carried since the beginning of writing the script. We imagined the sound, we invested the sound, not because only we're doing a representation of someone who is hearing impaired, who has a very special way in receiving and sending sounds and dealing with vibration, but also Malak brought a lot of that energy to our story. And we were very sensitive in dealing with sound, even in pre-production and production. And we all had this awareness that we all wanted to tune in to her frequency because
Mhm.
Malak has a very special frequency that we all need to be sensitive around her. And we all need to get that energy and really try to connect to that frequency, all of us. So we are all aligned to that vibration because she is full of life, a very uh, vibrant person. And it was very important for me to capture that from reality and try to reflect it in the film. So we, even in the sound design, at the post-production, we searched so much on sound designers who can really bring that inner world from a deaf girl. Like
Mhm.
Malak, in reality, we did a hearing test for her, and we discovered like she's 80% profoundly deaf. But in the film, in the Kahand character, we reduced that because we wanted to create some kind of a bigger space for the sound to come in and out in order for us to make a representation of the inner world that is very calm and the outside world that is very dirty and noisy and full of so many different vibration. And the tool that is the hearing aid is kind of our connection between the inner world and the outer world. And the sound helped us to create both worlds and the connection in between. So it was very vivid and clear for us that sound is a major character since the beginning of the creation of that film. So, and we were very lucky after a long research and finding sound designers, we ended up with working with a brilliant sound designer, an Iranian British sound designer who lives in London, which cost us a lot, but it was very worth it that we really invested in the right person and in the right element of the storytelling. But it was very challenging to find someone who really can bring this vision to life and understand a hearing person, how they are sensitive to sound and vibration, and how they read music, and how they can dance, and how their body frequency changes, and how this hearing aid is our bridge between the two worlds, how she's dealing with it. Like she's fine with her disability. She is not trying to be someone else. And every time she wants to go out to reality and connect with reality, she discovers reality that is very ugly. So she takes off the hearing aid, and she say, as if she's saying, like, I really do not want, I'm not interested in this world, and I do not want to connect with it. I'm fine with my calmness, and I'm fine with my hearing ability. So please don't force me to be someone that I'm not. I'm in peace with myself. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, because the mother is very protective, and the mother is very caring, and the mother wants her to be engaged, and she wants her to fit in with the society, she thinks always that the hearing aid is the tool for her
Yeah.
to be closer to that world, which I also try to show in the film, like how the mother is very sensitive to where the hearing aid, and she's always looking for it, and she wants to charge it, and she wants to make sure that it's working, and Hind doesn't lose it, because she knows that maybe this hearing aid will be the tool for her daughter to fit in that society, which is a completely a wrong impression and a wrong attitude. Like you need to create peace with your disability, and you need to make to accept who you are, and really enjoy the state you are live in, and don't force her to be someone that she doesn't want to be. That's
No, and I agree completely. And the funny thing is like this earlier this year, this was in May, I was in South Korea. I actually interviewed a filmmaker of another short film about a character who is deaf, another female character. And this is like she's an so like Hind is the child, and this character, she's an adult, and she's a book editor, you know. And so the challenges for this character is like this one, she doesn't wear hearing aids because she's completely 100% deaf. But the actress that plays her is here, it can hear, but the character is 100% deaf. But like the challenge for this character, she's a book editor, and she's having problems emotionally connecting to this story that she's editing because she's having writer's block, you know, like she herself is a writer. And like the film, the sound design for that film, I love the sound design for that film, for your films, because I think what both films do very well is show like just because someone can't hear doesn't mean they can't experience the world, you know. And like you talk a lot about the vibrations, and like for deaf people, that's how they hear music, you know, like
exactly.
they touch like speakers, they put their hands on tables, and they feel the vibrations, and that's how they're able to feel music, and you know, to listen, quote unquote, to music. And I think it's important, like you talk about like frequency, and like that's the thing is like we all have our own energy, you know, we all move through life individually. And just because someone can hear, can see, can walk, you know, can feel, can is fully able, as we say, doesn't mean that they don't have challenges too, you know. And like your film, and both your film and that one is showing like sometimes the disability isn't the main challenge in her life, you know. It's like for Hind, it's this assault that she experiences, and for the other character in the Korean film, it's writer's block, you know. And that's someone, any creator like you yourself as a filmmaker experience, you know. And I love that when filmmakers make films with disabled characters, they're saying actually the disability isn't the problem, is this other
No,
situation in life that's the biggest battle that they're dealing with. And I love that you keep reasserting that for people, are saying the challenge for Hind isn't her disability. Her disability might actually be a benefit, because she's like, you know what? This world that we're living in is just too much. I'm able to take my hearing aid out, and I don't need to experience all of this mess that's going on. I'm going to be very happy in my solitude and my quiet, and you know, just enjoy life the way I need to. And like you're saying, like her disability might, her being not being able to hear, might actually be a blessing for her, you know, because she doesn't have to
exactly.
hear all of the bad things that we walking, like women walking on the street, you know. Like if we walk on the street, get sexually harassed by some man making like these um gross and insulting comments, and like for a woman who might be deaf, she'd be like completely oblivious to that. And I'm like, that's a blessing to you, because you don't have to hear it.
Exactly. And for Hind, she's like, okay, the hearing aid is her tool. So whenever she decides to connect with the outer world, the reality, she has that option. But
Right.
it's not forced on her. Like it's not forced her to make her feel like she's normal, or she
Mm-hmm.
is disabled. No, that's not the issue at all. Like her disability is something that she is in peace with, and it's not stopping her from living her life fully. Other things in reality actually are the problem. It's
Yeah.
not the disability. But unfortunately, in our societies, people think the disability is the problem. So we don't see them engaged in the society. We don't see them having jobs. We don't see them in the educational sector. Like they are our society is the disabled society because
Yeah.
we judge them and we force them to live life that is completely unfair. Like these people are capable and talented, and if God takes one ability from them, it gives them a lot. So they are able to give a lot. Our society is the disabled society that prevent them from having a chance, that deprive them from existing in the society and being someone because of disabilities. It's our how we judge them, how we look at them. This is the disability. That's the real disability that we need to treat, that we need to solve, not any other issues.
Yeah.
It's our views to them. It's our judgments on them. It's our assuming that these people are incapable. No, they are not. We are the one who needs to really change, and we are the one that we needs to open our eyes to the beauty and the talents that these people have and embrace them and actually make them engage in the society, give them a chance, give them a voice, encourage them to exist the way they are and make them shine. This is
Mhm.
how we're supposed to do, but reality is something else. And as filmmakers, it's our responsibility to shed the light on these things and really show a representation that we miss to see, and that is very important for us to see on cinema and open a dialogue around that and engage with these people. Because
Mhm.
of this film, and because that we get to know this beautiful community, we decided we can do more a film. So we decided to create two things: a platform on social media called Mesmoor Heard, like we
Mhm.
hear you, for deaf content creator, in order for them to produce educational and entertainment content to bridge the gap between the hearing and non-hearing world. So they have a representation as well on social media, where they can engage in open topics and uh, share their stories with the world. That's
Mhm.
one thing. And the second thing we are creating now, actually, we're launching this Thursday, is the
Mhm.
first Deaf Cinema Club.
Mhm.
This is the first Deaf Cinema Club in Jordan, where we collected films and translated them to sign language. We created a format that can fit the deaf community. We created the format in the screen with a ratio, a certain ratio for the sign language interpreter to be in the screen. So where they are watching the film, they can see the film and they can see a full body of the sound of the sign language interpreter, because sign language is not only the hand, it's a body language, it's a physical language that needs to be expressed not only with the hand, with the emotions, with the body. It's acting in the end. So we created some kind of a ratio where we can see the film and we can see the sign language interpreter, where they can watch films, because most of the deaf community, they cannot read and write, because even in their schools, they learn in sign language. So even
Right.
subtitles are not doing the job. So we created
Mm.
a format, and we collected the films from our friends, and we created the Deaf Cinema Club, where monthly and weekly they can go and watch films, documentary and fiction, that are translated into sign language. So we felt we can do more. Not يعني, the journey with us didn't end in making the film. We felt we can make a real impact to the society that we feel is very much isolated and marginalized in our society. So as artists, as filmmakers, we felt like we wanted to do more. We wanted to give back as well, and we wanted to see them more engaged and exposed, because they have no outlet or exposure to the world except films.
I'm gonna share because I found your Instagram account for the film, so I'm gonna share that on. You said this Thursday, so I'll make sure that I share that on my Instagram and social media as well. And the last thing that I want us to talk about, and I think is very important, because you mentioned you're Palestinian, you mentioned the overall overwhelming silence of the world, especially governments, about what's happening in Palestine with the genocide by Israel. I want you to talk because I want people to really understand for you as a filmmaker that you're still showing the film, like you're talking to me. You know, you're talking about the film, and like the film showed at Minikino and it's showing at other film festivals. And I want you to talk about what it's like for you having to acknowledge what's going on in the world, but still having to like basically use this quote unquote live this normal life as a filmmaker promoting her film. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that. Like for me, I want to acknowledge that I know it's difficult for you, and I think it's important that people understand what it is like for you to have to experience this. So can you, if you're comfortable, of course, can you share a bit about that?
Of course, like for me, since like this very intense, sad year, like this whole thing that is happening in Palestine is all I think of and all I speak of, because what we've been witnessing for the past year is unbearable and unbelievable, that we've been watching a genocide that is live streaming for almost a year and a
Yeah.
month. And nobody in this world is doing a freaking thing to stop it. It was very clear to me that I live in a world that I cannot trust. I
Mm.
have so many questions that I ask myself every day, what kind of world that I exist and what kind of responsibility that I carry with me as an artist, as a filmmaker, as a human. Like every normal person who experienced this pain or been watching all these images will act, will do something. Anything that you can do will make a difference. So imagine that me as a Palestinian watching all these atrocities, and this is all what I carry. Honestly, I've been not promoting my film as much as I wanted to use any platform that I exist in to speak about that and to bring awareness about that and to make sure like every voice count and every action count, because this is what we've been facing. Governments do not do anything. Now is the power in the people and the awareness of the people. And this is why it's very important that we speak up in every single chance that we have to bring in awareness. It makes a difference. Even if you teach someone what's the meaning of boycott and how it's important now, this movement, and how you can apply that into your life, it made me feel something, because I am not a normal person for the past 1 year. I am a different. I carry a lot of anger, and I carry a lot of sadness. So I try as much as I can in every single space that I exist. This is the only topic that I really care to talk about, and it's my responsibility and it's my conscious ability that I need to do something always, every day. I need to do something.
Mhm.
It is very, very heartbreaking to see the world looking at this genocide and not do anything. Like there's no trust, no belief, no. I cannot express how much I'm angry about how the world is dealing with what's happening, not only in Palestine. These injustices are happening everywhere. Look to what is happening in Sudan, and look what is happening to Congo, and look at what's happening now in Lebanon. Like the world is turning to be a very evil, ugly place. And people in power do not give a shit, sorry, about anyone. And
I'm
who
with you completely. Like,
and people are paying the price and nobody cares. So
mhm,
we as Palestinian, as artists, as filmmakers, our existence by itself is a resistance.
mhm.
Our work is a resistance, and we have to keep on telling our stories, and we have to keep creating art, and we have to create whatever we feel that we have this weapon, a real weapon to tell the world about what is happening, and to keep telling the stories, and actually to make history written, because we don't trust who write this history.
Exactly.
Our personal experience is the history. This is what we believe in our personal experience. This is what we can reflect on. This is what we need to tell. But we don't trust anyone who write the story. We don't trust anyone who try to create a propaganda and promote a narrative that is completely false. And unfortunately, you see still people are doubting about what is happening. And unfortunately, you see people are still in silence. And this is the silence that I wanted always to connect to my film. Like exactly it is the global silence that is deafening, that is every day confirming to me that what kind of an ugly world that I am living in, and how am I supposed to navigate myself in it as a Palestinian. And my responsibility every day, I feel it's heavy on my shoulder, that I always need to I need to tell stories. I need to keep on doing my art. I need to keep on existing, because by existing itself is a threat to them. And it's very important for us to keep threatening them.
No, I'm with you. Art is a form of resistance, you know. Joy is a form of resistance. Like I'm very much pro Palestine. I'm always tweeting about it, and I and I always think like I wish I could do more, but I'm like I'm gonna use my platform the best way I can, you know, like tweeting about it, sharing GoFundMe's, like talking about the silence of the world, like the politicians. I here in Canada, like our it was our prime minister Justin Trudeau and the entire government has been useless, you know, and it's like yeah, I'm like you realize yeah, this world that we live in is just ugly, it's nasty, and I think it's important for creatives like yourself to like keep using your art and speaking up and using it, and it because your art is a form of documentation, you know, like that you're making sure that history stays factual, you know, like you're making sure that people are aware of the truth, and I think that's vitally important, and using film as a way to show the truth to the world is important because I always look at film as a teaching tool. You know, to me, it's not always just entertainment. It's a teaching tool. It's a way
Oh,
to teach
sure.
people about the world that we live in. And for filmmakers like you, it's important that you keep teaching us, you know, like you keep speaking as I would say, speaking truth to power. And I appreciate you taking the time for speaking to me, not only about Sukoun, but also about your the challenges you're facing and the way you feel, because that the way you feel is valid, and I wanted to make sure that I give you that space to talk about it, you know, because I think it's important. It's something that I don't want to ignore, and I don't think that anyone else should ignore, because I think we've been in since 2020, the world has been changing fundamentally, you know, and it's been changing in a way that we may have seen, but we may not have necessarily been able to predict completely. But we still gotta keep fighting, you know. We still gotta we can't give up. We gotta have hope somehow, some way. Some like it's just like
We
we do.
know all the masks has been falling. We know in all levels, in all levels. Name it the way you like it. All these masks
Yeah,
are gone. And
yeah.
now we are seeing the truth, the ugly truth now. And if you are a person who has awareness and conscious, you will never stop being activist. You will never stop speaking the truth. You will never stop creating safe spaces for this truth to be heard. This is
Mhm.
very important, and it's a role that everyone is responsible. You cannot divide yourself from the world and say, like, this is not concerning me. No, what is happening here is affecting the whole world, and it will affect you in your life no matter what, because you need to trust the world you live in. And when you see such atrocities that are happening in this side of the world, and the world is watching, what kind of trust you will have, what
Mhm.
kind of relationship you will create with the world you live. Yani, it's all connected. We're all connected one way or other. We are all one, and we are all connected. What harms me here harms you there, and what harms you there harm me here, because this is not the world we want our kids and generation live in. We all need to unite and fight to create a safe space for us to exist in. We are not really far away from each other. We're very close and very connected. So it's a matter of what kind of world you want to live and what kind
Mhm.
of space you want to exist in. This is a question that everybody should ask themselves, and everybody should act upon that. So we will definitely exist, and we will keep on telling our stories, and we will always share this truth until one day, like, we really see this this real change happening in reality. And this is something that will never happen unless we all work together and we all unite to achieve that, because we know, like, who can and who can't. Now, governments are not our, like, there's a huge division between the people and the government. So we already know, like, governments are playing on a level and people are doing something else. No matter in which country you are in the first world, if you call it, or the third world, if you call it, it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
So we need to dream of a better day, and we need to dream of a better tomorrow, because this is our hope and this is how we wanted to exist. And we should fight for it and use our real weapons, real weapons, not the guns that they kill us in. Our real weapons, our real passion, our art, our storytelling, our creativity is something that they never control and they will never control.
Great. I think that's a perfect way to end this. Thank you so much, Dina, for speaking with me and for taking the time to talk to me about this film and about your work and your art. And thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate it. Perfect way to start my day.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking to you, and I really hope that people, whoever listen to this, this conversation will be inspiring to them.
I hope so too. Thank you so much.
Shukran. Thank you so much. Have a
Thanks.
beautiful